The history of medieval warfare is steeped in the image of the noble knight. Sworn to a crown and bound by chivalry, this ideal warrior is immortalized in works like Paolo Uccello's Grand Fresco. The subject of this painting is Sir John Hawkwood. He held no fealty to the city of Florence that painted him. He was the commander of the White Company, a highly lethal, privately owned military corporation. The reality of his operation was far removed from a painted chapel. His camps were driven by strict ledgers, heavy payrolls, and cold profit margins. During the 14th century, Italian city-states like Florence and Venice accumulated staggering wealth from Levantine trade, yet they maintained nearly non-existent domestic armies. This extreme imbalance of vast capital and zero defense created a highly lucrative, unregulated free market. The cities needed protection, and private military corporations stepped in to monopolize the violence. The geopolitical map of the Italian peninsula was deeply fractured. Florence, Venice, and Milan operated as independent hubs of commerce. Their wealth made them highly vulnerable targets for rival attacks and foreign invasion. Concurrently, periodic truces in the Hundred Years' War left thousands of English and German veterans unemployed. These professional soldiers migrated south across the Alps, seeking a new market for their combat experience. This is a Florentine gold florin. While a skilled craftsman in Florence might earn 30 of these in a year, a successful mercenary captain could draw an annual salary of up to 80,000 florins. These mercenary commanders were titled condottieri. The term originates directly from the word condotta. The condotta established a strictly formalized, legally binding commercial framework, stripping away feudal oaths in favor of professional litigation. Through this strict bureaucratic framework, Italian governments took roving bands of displaced soldiers and reorganized them into highly structured, profit-driven corporate entities. The White Company maintained a rigid internal organizational hierarchy, operating with the same administrative discipline found in a modern multinational firm. The base operational unit was the lance, which consisted of exactly 3 men. Each lance contained 1 fully armored man-at-arms, a supporting squire, and a page to manage logistics and horses. 5 lances formed a larger unit called a posta, and multiple postae were managed by middle-tier officers known as corporals. These corporals operated as independent subcontractors. They maintained their own direct relationships with the enlisted men, introducing a decentralized, nearly democratic dynamic to the lower ranks. Above the combat commanders sat the executive branch, the non-combat administrative corps of the company. The company employed Italian chancellors and notaries to negotiate the complex legal clauses of the condottas with city-state governments. Revenue distribution was managed by an English treasurer, William Thornton. He handled the massive influx of contract gold and ensured the payroll was met. By offloading logistics to a heavy administrative apparatus, the condottieri completely decoupled warfare from national ideology. War functioned entirely as a business-to-business enterprise. Every condotta had 2 distinct operational phases: the ferma, a period of active, highly paid combat service, and the aspetto, a waiting period on retainer while the client considered contract renewal. This manuscript illumination depicts the traditional chivalric model of war: direct, high-casualty clashes between heavy cavalry. To a mercenary CEO, that level of mortality is disastrous. Highly trained veteran soldiers are expensive capital assets. Losing them in a pitched battle destroys the company's valuation and degrades its bargaining power. This economic reality dictated John Hawkwood's tactical doctrine. This diagram shows his preferred approach: continually outmaneuvering an enemy bloc to force a strategic concession, avoiding direct combat entirely. When engagement was absolutely necessary, the White Company fought dismounted. They used tight, close-order formations to control battlefield space and neutralize the threat of cavalry charges. By maintaining a disciplined defensive posture, Hawkwood prevented the unnecessary slaughter of his men during tense standoffs. His genius lay in fighting indirectly. He secured leverage by degrading the enemy's logistical ability to wage war, preserving his own company's assets for the next contract. This map highlights the major powers of 14th century Italy, but actual combat between these states was secondary to Hawkwood's most lucrative revenue stream: protection money. Consider the prelude to the War of the Eight Saints in 1375. Hawkwood was officially contracted by Pope Gregory XI to suppress rebellions in papal territory. Frustrated by delayed payments from the Pope, Hawkwood marched his army along the Via Emilia, straight toward the borders of the Florentine Republic. Florence recognized the threat immediately. They dispatched ambassadors and paid the White Company 130,000 florins, plus an annual pension, simply to stay out of their territory. This was geopolitical arbitrage. By holding a monopoly on organized violence, Hawkwood could dictate exorbitant financial terms to ostensible employers and their rivals alike. But manipulating the market carried severe consequences, particularly when a client defaulted on their payroll. When the Pope failed to tate his forces, the mercenaries turned on the towns they were hired to protect. Unpaid assets had to be extracted by force. In 1377, papal mercenaries slaughtered thousands of civilians in the city of Cesena. This was a cold operational calculation to extract monetary value from a defaulting client's territory. Following the massacre, Hawkwood abandoned the financially unreliable papacy entirely. He executed a seamless pivot, signing a massive long-term contract to fight for his former target, Florence. His loyalty was strictly transactional. Leveraging debt and market panic extracted more value than any battlefield victory. The average medieval warrior faced a violently short lifespan. The battlefield offered high mortality and minimal compensation. John Hawkwood died in his 70s. He passed away as a vastly wealthy, landed, and legally protected citizen of the Florentine Republic. His career ended not with a sword strike, but with the closing of a highly profitable ledger built on decades of systemic extortion. We return to Paolo Uccello's fresco. Look past the Stoic Knight, and the metrics of his career emerge, up to 80,000 florins in annual revenue, generated entirely by an independent contractor. This fresco functions as a high-budget branding exercise, repackaging a career of extortion into the respectable image of a civic defender. John Hawkwood and the White Company proved that the violence of 14th-century Italy was a commodified asset, to be contracted, leveraged, and liquidated for a dividend.